welcome back to another video. This really popped when I saw it. That to me is a monster increase. Again, this book got hot. This book is ready to go higher.
So let's jump right into it.
We are back today with another statue review from Diamond Select Toys. Without further ado, let's get into the review. What is going on, YouTube? This is Lawrence over at Mighty Comics and Collectibles, and welcome back to another video. Today, we're going to be talking about the books that whenever I go to a con, or whenever I go to a show, or my LCS, there are a set of books that I'm always willing to buy if I can get them at the right price. And we're going to talk about those books today in this video. But before we get started, like we always do, if you are not a current subscriber of the channel, I want you to do me a favor and go ahead and click the subscribe button for me because it does help the channel out. I want you to smash that like button on the way out as well and turn on the notification bell because it lets you guys know when I post new videos. So like I said, guys, whenever I go to a show, a con, my LCS, there's always a bunch of books in my head that I am looking to buy if I can get them at the right price. Now, the first thing that I always consider are the books that I want to collect, right? So anybody who watches my channel religiously knows that I love Amazing Spider-Man. I have a big attachment to Spider-Man villains and, of course, Spider-Man himself. Select Marvel classic covers as well. I love Jack Kirby. I love John Romita. So those are the things I really stick to. There are some first appearances that I'm going to throw in there as well that I always am looking to buy. And that kind of goes along with the territory about what's going on in the MCU, what's going on in Marvel itself, and just characters that I've always been drawn to. The one thing I am going to say to you guys is this: always buy what you like. Everybody says it, everybody talks about it, but this is what I like and what I buy, so this is what I stick to. Does that make sense? Also, I am a Marvel collector. Most of my books that I have in my collection are Marvel books. So every book on this list is a Marvel book. That doesn't mean I don't buy DC books, doesn't mean I don't buy independent books. It means that when I go into a show or a con, I always have a set of books that I'm always looking for no matter what. If they're for a good price and it's a good deal, I'm willing to pounce on those books always, no matter what. Okay, so we're going to start. Number one on my list this week is a copy of Marvel Spotlight number 2, the first appearance of Werewolf by Night. And not a lot of people are going out looking for this book right now. I have been drawn to it ever since I got back into collecting, maybe about 5-6 years ago. One of the first books that I started looking for. Not an ultra popular character, but now with Moon Knight upon us, I think a lot of people have forgotten about this book. I went to a show a couple of weeks back. There were 4 copies available. I almost pulled the trigger on a couple of them, but I really wanted to get a higher grade for the money that I would be spending on this book. But again, a book I am always looking for no matter what when I go to a show. Another one on that list is another Marvel Spotlight. It is Marvel Spotlight number 5 and the first appearance of Johnny Blaze as the Ghost Rider. To me, this book is still so undervalued, and the Ghost Rider I can almost guarantee will show up in a future MCU movie. It's going to happen. There's no way it's not. And there are a decent amount of copies of this book out there, but not a lot of great looking copies. If you can get yourself a 5.0 or higher, I'm always looking to get a nice raw copy of this book. Hey, if you're a graded collector, great. I think that's awesome. You could see in the bottom right of this video, I have a 4.0 CGC graded copy. But again, if it presents well, then hey, it's all worth it. No matter what the grade, if it really presents well, it's complete, unrestored, and you want that copy in your collection, jump on. It's just one of the books that I always go out looking for because I do think it is severely undervalued, and there's a lot of push that's going to happen in that book going forward. A Bronze Age key, I think, one of the few that I'm always picking up. The next one, another Marvel Spotlight. Marvel Spotlight number 32 and the first appearance of Jessica Drew as the Spider-Woman. Again, when I first got back into collecting, this was a book that nobody was talking about. You could have had a really nice copy, probably $8.90 for under $100. Now you're probably going to pay about 3 times the amount for this book. But again, a book I still think that has a lot of room to grow. We saw Sony, they're having their own Spider-Verse. I don't know if she's going to show up in that Madame Web movie. If it does happen, great. If it doesn't, no big deal. But I do think the book is still undervalued, and I do think we're going to get Jessica Drew in a future Spider-Man movie at some point, whether it's a Sony or Marvel, but a book I'm always looking to add to the collection. I've had probably about 4 or 5 copies over my lifespan. I have one really high-grade copy right now that is raw. But again, if I go into the con or into some place and they have a nice copy that is undervalued and I can pull the trigger on for cheap, I'm always looking for this book. All right, the next book is a set of Fantastic Four books, right? We're going to start off with a recent pickup of mine, if you guys have been watching my channel, Fantastic Four number 12, and that first Hulk meets the Fantastic Four. I've been talking about this book since day one. The classic Jack Kirby cover, the gray backgrounds, the pops of color. I've been drawn to this book ever since I was a kid. One of the first books that I added to my collection as I got older and as I was able to spend more money on Silver Age comic books. This is one of my favorites. This book and Silver Surfer number 4 are the two best covers I think that I've ever seen. One by John Buscema, one by the great Jack Kirby. I would always go with FF12. To me, that is a better cover. It's classic. It means more to me than an SS4, but I still think that's a great pickup if you want to do that one. But again, an FF12 book, I am always looking to buy this book for a good deal. If you went back a couple of years, you could have had a nice 4-row copy for around $400 to $500. We're talking about that book almost tripling now, so you really have to do your due diligence in finding the right copy. A book I always want to pick up no matter what. All right, the next FF4 book we're going to talk about, of course, is Fantastic Four number 48 and the first appearance of the Silver Surfer. People have been dog crapping this cover for the longest time. It has grown on me over the past couple of years. At one point, I had like 2 or 3 copies, unloaded all of them when we first got that Fox News, so I made a nice bit of coin on that, and now I'm starting to add this book back into my collection. I only have 1 copy right now, but I'm looking to pull the trigger on more copies when I have some extra cash, whenever I go to a show or at my LCS, if I can get it at the right price. And that, of course, is the key, right, guys? I'm never paying market value for these books, especially in this market. I always want to get a deal. In this market, it's different, right? It wasn't 6 months to a year ago where you can go out and spend full market, full price, even a little bit over because you knew the books would keep going up and up and up. It's not like that anymore. I have to be under the last sale, and I want a good chunk off that last sale now too. People are unloading books for some reason, and I can't figure out why, because this is the exact opposite of what you should be doing right now in this market. You should be adding keys. Adding keys that you think for the long term are going to keep go up in value. FF40 is a book I'd be jumping on right now. It has really taken almost a 50% haircut since it was maybe about a year ago. I'd be all over this one. It's a book I always look to add no matter what. The next FF book is, of course, Fantastic Four number 49 and the first appearance of Galactus. Again, if I had the choice between this one and the 48, I'd always go with the 48. But hey, if you have a 48 and you don't have a 49 and you want to add the next one, 49 is a book that I'm always looking to buy. Galactus is a huge deal in Marvel. Eventually, we are going to get him in the MCU. It's probably going to be a long ways out. But hey, if we do get any type of hint, this book is going to explode. A couple of years back, you could have had like around a 4 or 5 copy for around $400. Now, forget about it. Again, it's almost tripled since that time. But a book, if I can get a good copy, I'm always looking to add no matter what, because Galactus is a big deal. If you guys haven't heard this story, maybe about a year ago, I went into one of my LCSs, and they literally had a copy like for $150 that I picked it up. It was insane, the deal that I got on that book. Wasn't the highest grade thing, but hey, when you can get an FF49 for $150 or around that price range, I think as long as it presents well and it's, complete, no resto, you have to pull the trigger on this book. It's one of the books I'm always looking for no matter what. And of course, the last FF book is a biggie. Not everybody out there can go out and get one, but hey, I'm always looking to buy this book if it's the right deal. And that, of course, is Fantastic Four number 5 and the first appearance of Dr. Doom. There are so few copies of this book out there, and I believe that the count that is on CGC rivals Hulk number 1, so there's very few copies, and not a lot of people actually go out and buy this book as opposed to some of the other bigger books out there like ASM 1, FF1. I want to own this book probably before those 2 books that I just mentioned, right? This is Dr. Doom, the biggest Marvel villain there is, hugely popular. Books going to keep going up in value. So to me, this is a must own. Anytime I go to a show, probably not going to find it at your LCS too often, but a con, if I can get a great deal and I do have the money to spend on it, I'm always looking to add this book when I can. If trades are your thing, use one of your books that you're not too fond of, bunch of books that you're not too fond of that you maybe want to move out of your collection, and try to get yourself a copy of this to add to your collection. Because I think this is one of still very highly expensive, but it's still undervalued for what this character is. Again, another book I'm always looking to add no matter what. All right, so now we're going to jump to the Amazing Spider-Man. books that I always go after when I go to a show, and there are a lot of them, so I'm just going to kind of run through them quickly, because if I just keep going one-on-one and just talk about each one, we'll be here for like over an hour, because there are. But most of them I want to stick to are 1 through 50. There's a couple more after that, but 1 through 50, the bigger keys, I want to own, and I'm always going into places looking to buy them if I can get them for a significant discount. The first one, of course, is Amazing Spider-Man #1, the second appearance of Spider-Man, the first appearance of J. Jonah Jameson, and, of course, the first appearance of the Chameleon. I have been looking for another copy of this book forever, but it has gone absolutely nuclear. It is really expensive, and if I'm going to spend 15 grand on a copy of this book, I might as well go out and spend double that and buy an AF-15. That's the way I just look at this book as a Spider-Man fan. If I'm going to spend almost 20 grand on a book, maybe I'm just better off buying a low-grade AF-15 and holding on to that book instead of this one. Again, not a book that a lot of people can go out there and buy, but again, I'm always looking for them when I go. When I buy stuff, I'm looking for deals. I've said it time and time again. In this market, I'm not paying full price for these books. I'm not going into a con saying, hey, I want this book, I'll pay full price. No, that's not what we're doing anymore. I'm going in looking for a significant discount. If I can't get it, I move on, right? Don't do it right now. People have to move books at the end of the day. Sellers want to sell books at the end of the day. If they're willing to give you a good deal, then hey, it may be worth it. If they're not, then move on, go to your next choice. The next one we're going to talk about is Amazing Spider-Man #2, the first appearance of the Vulture. I think this book speaks for itself, and so on and so forth. We're going to go to Amazing Spider-Man #3, first appearance of Doc Ock, probably one of the most popular Amazing Spider-Man villains. Anytime I can add this book for a good deal, I'm all over it. Amazing Spider-Man #4, first appearance of the Sandman. Ditto to what I just said. Classic Amazing Spider-Man characters. And all these Amazing Spider-Man books, they're easy to sell. So if you can get them for a deal, always add them, especially if you're going to hang on to them for a little bit. But these are the books I'm always looking for. Amazing Spider-Man 5, I wouldn't put it in that category of the first 4 because it's not the first appearance of Doctor Doom. It's just the first appearance of Doctor Doom crossing over with Spidey. But I always say this is the second book I'd be going for if you can't get that FF5. So I'm including it in this list because I do go looking for this book, because the people who can't buy an FF5, they're looking for an ASM #5. Go on to Amazing Spider-Man #6, first appearance of a lizard. A lot of people dog this book because of the great cover and, you know, the purple lizard on the front. I actually love it, and I still think you can get this book for relatively cheap, and it's issue #6 of Amazing Spider-Man. To me, it is way too cheap, and a book I'm always looking to add to the collection if I can get it for a great deal. Amazing Spider-Man #9, first appearance of Electro, one of my favorite Spider-Man villains. Again, an undervalued book in my opinion. Silver Age Amazing Spider-Man, a book I'm always looking to add. Amazing Spider-Man #14, first appearance of the Green Goblin. Another book that I don't know why is so freaking cheap. You can go out there and probably get a 2.5 for around $1,500, and now people say that's cheap, but you know what? For the first appearance of the Green Goblin, Spider-Man's arch nemesis, that is cheap, right? I don't know if we're ever going to see a Green Goblin in the MCU again. Regardless, I love this book. It is such a huge character. I do think we're going to get another Norman Osborn sometime down the road. This is not his first appearance, but regardless, Green Goblin is a huge Spider-Man villain. Everybody should be looking to add this to their collection. Amazing Spider-Man #20, still an undervalued key. You could probably get a 4-pointer copy for under $600 right now. That is cheap for especially a villain they have not used and they've teased so far in the MCU. Don't know why this book is so cheap. I always looking to buy it if I can get a good deal on it. Amazing Spider-Man #50. You guys know how I feel about this book if you watch my channel. First appearance of the Kingpin, classic cover and classic storyline. I love this book. If you don't own a copy of this one, it's a book I always go out there and try to find if I can get one for the right price. And there are a ton of copies for sale right now. If you go on eBay, if you go on Instagram, there's copies everywhere, and it's only driving down the price. So stick to your guns, know the price you want to pay that you're comfortable with, and snag your copy while you can. But it's a great long-term hold, guys. Next one we're going to talk about is Amazing Spider-Man #129, the first appearance of Frank Castle and the Punisher. You guys know the Punisher is one of my favorite comic book superheroes of all time. I love this Gil Kane, John Romita cover, one of my favorites. I actually have an homage sitting right next to me. I have a print that somebody did for me. It absolutely is phenomenal. One of my favorite covers of all time. It is a yellow cover book, an extremely popular Amazing Spider-Man book right now, and rumors that John Bernthal is coming back to the MCU. to take on that role again. This book is only going to go higher. But again, a book I'm always looking to add if I can get it at a good deal. But when you go into a con, when you go into a show, when you go into your LCS, you got to know your prices. You got to know what you're willing to pay for each book. So this is the list that I compile, that I know that if I'm going in somewhere and I see this book, I got to know the price at every grade that I want to pay for that book. This is important, okay? This is really important if you want to play this game. The next book we're going to talk about is Amazing Spider-Man number 194 and the first appearance of the Black Cat. Another one of my favorite, I don't want to call her a villain and a heroine at the same time, but either way, she's Spider-Man's love interest. She is a villain. Again, a severely undervalued book. It is finally taking off over the past 6 to 8 months. So again, if you're going to buy a copy, I'm always sticking 8.0 or higher on this book if I can. If you can't and you have to grab a lower grade, that's 100% fine. You collect the way you want to collect. But again, a book I'm always looking for because it is undervalued, and I am such an Amazing Spider-Man fan. The last one on this list is Amazing Spider-Man number 300 and the first appearance of Venom. There are a lot of copies out there of this book. Let's start with that first. A lot of copies out there. I'm sticking at 9.2 or higher on this book, but the higher, the better. If you can get a high-grade copy and really get a deal on this book, and it has come down, especially in a 9.8, I think it's probably come down 30% in price right now. So if you could stick to your guns and get a great deal on a 9.8, I'd be jumping on one. If you can. If you can't, that's great. 9.2 or higher, I still think you're fine, but the higher the better because there is a high volume of this book out there. All right, so now we're going to ship over to Daredevil. Daredevil number 1 is the first and only Daredevil book that I am looking for at shows, at cons, at my LCS when I go. That book, you guys have heard me talk about it for the past couple of years, is still one of the big Marvel keys that is still not where it should be financially, right? You can get a 2.0 for under $3,000 right now. I think that's a steal, to be honest with you. At one point, I've owned up to 3 or 4 copies of this book. I'm now down to 2, and that's probably where I'm going to stay for right now. But again, if I could go out to a show, I went to a show maybe about a week and a half ago. They had a couple copies there, but the prices were too high for me to pull the trigger. I made some offers, they didn't budge, and I moved on. Don't feel that you have to pay someone else's prices for a book that you want in this market. You guys understand that? It is very important. It is a buyer's market right now. It is switched over. It used to be sellers, now it's a buyer's market. If they don't want to let go of a book, no big deal. Don't take offense to it. Just move on and look for the next copy that you're interested in buying. But there are a lot of sellers out there that are willing to wheel and deal. So if you have to throw in a trade and you really want a book, don't overpay right now because there is no need to. But it's a book I'm always looking to buy when I'm out there. We're going to shift over to a biggie, a blue chip Marvel key, Incredible Hulk number 1, and the first appearance of Bruce Banner as the Incredible Hulk. Now you're going to say to me, why are you going to a show looking to buy this book? Guys, we talked about it on the, one of my previous videos, how scarce this book is. This book, about a year and a half ago, you could have had for half the price than it is right now. And I do think you're going to get a drop in this book eventually, and I'd be looking to add another copy if I could. I just sold a copy, and I just bought a copy. So I wanted a better looking copy than I had, which I added, so I sold my copy. But when I bought my other one, I paid about half the price for that book, and I sold it for almost double. So it's all about when you buy, and now I think it's a great time to buy, especially the fact that, like I said, it's a buyer's market. This is a book I'm always looking for. Incredible Hulk is a huge character in Marvel. Forget the movies, forget the MCU, what they've done to the character. What Stan Lee and Jack Kirby did when they came up with this character is second to none. He is phenomenal the way he is. The root of who he is great. I don't really care for what they've done to the character now in the new modern books. That's just not me. But hey, if that's your thing, I think that's awesome. But for me, it's a book I always look to go out and buy. Now, if somebody's going to say, how come AF-15 is not on this list? AF-15 is not on this list because, one, there are more copies of AF-15 there are Incredible Hulk number 1. And number 2, I think everybody in the world is looking for an AF-15. Everybody out there is a Spider-Man fan. So while that book has gone nuclear as well, it's come down a bit, but there will always be buyers for that book. Someone will always be looking for that book because of the popularity of Spider-Man. Not everybody out there is looking for Hulk 1, but the true collectors out there, the people who know the value of that character, will always be looking for it, and it's more scarce. So it's always worth more, in my opinion. A book, again, we should go back to the first rule that buy what you like. I like the Hulk, so I'm always looking for that book. That's the number 1 rule. But you can get a deal right now. I can guarantee you can. The last one on my list, guys, guess what? It's a DC book. And it's probably the only DC book that will ever be on this list for me. And of course, it is House of Secrets, number 92, and the first appearance of Swamp Thing. Now, why did this book make this list, but no others did? Plain and simple. Bernie Wrightson and this cover is absolutely phenomenal. I've always been attracted to this book. I love the horror genre, and to have both of those together, it just so happens to be a DC book. And it's a first appearance as well of the Swamp Thing. So to me, whenever I see this book, I'm always looking to buy it. I'm always looking at the grade. I'm always looking to see what the person is selling it for, because if I can get this book at a deal, I'll pounce on it. I've had one copy in my lifetime that was a 5.0 or 5.5 that I sold maybe about a year ago when we first got that comic boom. I wanted to roll that money into something else because I didn't think this book was going to appreciate as quick as the Marvel stuff, and I was right. So right now, I still think you can go out and get a copy of House of Secrets number 92 and still get a good deal. It has gone up, but a book I'm always looking to add because of its popularity as well. I'm not the only one who loves it. There are people out there who collect that absolutely love this book, and I'm one of them. So these are the books that I'm always going to shows, LCS, cons, small cons, that I'm always looking to add to the collection, whether I have single, double, whatever. I'm always looking at. I'll give you one more because I see it in the background on my video, is Iron Man number 1. Super undervalued. Super undervalued. You can get a mid-grade copy for under $1,000. Not a lot of people talk about that book, but again, if I can go out and get it for cheap, I'll do it, because undervalued is the word when we're talking about that book, right? All right, so this is the books that I'm still looking to buy right now in this market when I go anywhere that I go. I always have a set in my head of, hey, I want this book. I'm going to get it at a great price. I'm going to add it. So I know I'm kind of rambling. A lot of stuff going on this week, so my voice is kind of in and out. But I wanted to jump in here and talk about this because I do think it's important. Whenever you're going anywhere, create yourself a list of what you want to buy. What stuff that you think you want in your collection for the long term, because I do think it is important. There are always the same books on this list. You'll always come back and you'll always find stuff to say, hey, all right, this is a good deal. I've memorized the prices at this point because I'm always going to shows and I always know, hey, what's this worth? What's this not worth? Is this a deal? Is this a not a deal? Regardless, I do think it'll help you in the long run if you're looking to be a long-term collector. Hey, if you collect like modern stuff and you're not into this stuff, that's great. This is more for the lines of people who collect along the lines of how I collect. So with that said, guys, this is Lawrence over at Mighty Comics and Collectibles saying thank you for watching, and I'll talk to you guys soon.